Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to wait a couple more minutes just to let some more people trickle in, and then we'll get started.
What's the exact protocol for the distance your laptop should be from, should it be back here or here?
I always fight with that.
I think it
You
looks
don't want to
great.
cut off the top of your head, just
You
from
want,
a photography. You want to have space around you.
oh, I
Yeah.
do. Okay. All right.
So
I didn't
a
know
little more
that was
air over your head. There you go.
I think I look better the further away from the
Well,
camera I
I mean, I wasn't gonna say anything, but
am.
You could always use the soft focus trick. Smear a little Vaseline or
There
a
you
pair of
exactly.
nylons over the top.
Can we shoot him from Long Beach?
It looks like we're live.
Mhm.
How we doing, Beth?
Good. We'll get started in 1 minute. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is the Novacoast Security Briefing on identity debt, how enterprise IAM broke, and what's gonna fix it. I sent in the chat, but basically we're gonna wait until the end. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end. All right, gonna hand it off to Aaron.
Thanks everybody for joining and spending 30 minutes of your day with us. We're going to be hopefully a little edgy with our opinions. We're going to give you a little bit of stories about our experience in the IAM world. And we're, of course, going to pitch you on our service, which is our responsibility to do. I brought some friends along, Chris Barngrover and Jim Gherkin. Before I give you kind of a little bit about us, I'll give you 30 seconds on Novacoast in case a friend of a friend invited you to this and you don't know who we are. So if you've never worked with us before, Novacoast has been around. We're actually 29 years old. We're boutique in the world of professional services, 450 so employees, zero contractors. We do not outsource, offshore, subcontract anything we do. We run 24/7 SOC facilities where a lot of our managed service happens. We do a wide range of security engineering and integration work, as well as a wide suite of managed security services, and a long history going back to 28 years in identity. No, not 20, 26 years in identity and access. So that's why we're here today. All right. About us. So I started in 2001 as a developer. I met this guy named Jim Gherkin, who's on the phone. He was an IDM engineer. There wasn't IAM, it was IDM back then. And Novacoast had two IAM folks, me and Jim, and we went off and did something called DurXML 1.1. And I can't see the chat, but if you dealt with that, give a little thumbs up because that was a fun time. I think we sunk an NT domain to an Active Directory. We met Chris Barngrover, who joined Novacoast later on, and Jim met him first in 2005, and he worked for all the vendors. He was involved in all the IAM products. And fast forward today, I oversee the services organization as a whole as COO, and Jim and Chris lead all of our conversations and talk to every customer about their IAM environment and do the advisory on what people should be doing and what it looks like. Team's roughly 100 people all in, people that touch IAM environments today. So hope that gives you guys a picture of us. Jim, Chris, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello. Lots of customers as well. I mean, one statistics, we, over those 26 years, customers well in the high 3 digits, closer to 4 digits.
Yeah.
So this isn't just one or two people telling us this stuff. It's a lot of people in a lot of industries in a lot of countries.
Yeah, and I've heard the stories as well, working at vendors most of my career. Been working, known Jim in particular and Novacoast in general for 20 plus years now, and been working with them at different vendors. And a couple years ago, it was time for a change, and conversations happened, and here we go. So yeah, looking forward to conversation today.
Great. Thanks, guys. All right. So just so you get the suite of how we see the identity and access world, and these are all things that Novacoast does, just so you understand. We do work on the program side, guidance, product selection, road mapping, maturity, continuous improvement planning. We have a vast group of engineers and developers that do this work day in and day out, either based on projects or hourly. And then we do the support, which is a business. If you asked me 2 years ago, if you asked me 2023, would we ever do IAM service desk work? I was in no chance. Nobody likes their service desk. We would never get into that. And here we are, and we're going to be talking about it today. As the world has changed for many reasons, it's suddenly not only a crucial part, but something we can do very well. So that's how we see the world, this continuous loop of planning, building, and improving. Christian, did I do us a disservice there? Say anything wrong?
Not at all, sir. Not at all. The advisory stuff under program is clearly where we're going to come in and take a look at what's going on and help you with that roadmap and decide what help you decide what you should work on next. Because every time you make the decision on what you're working on next, you're making the decision what you're not going to work on next too. So help understand, build that roadmap, pitch the value back to your organization to help you get funding along those lines. There's a lot we can do in that space. And then engineering is going to be, from the, we need to increase our bandwidth. We're doing a reorg. We need to bring more systems under management, et cetera, et cetera. It's all that, change and that kind of thing. And then support is keeping the trains running and helping you run from that thing. And we can engage at any or all points along that curve.
Right. Okay, great. All right. So let's jump in and try to be controversial. So we're going to talk about where we see IAM environments broken. I think we've been evolving our thinking over this over the past 5 years, where maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we look, we're engineers. So we're always saying, hey, we can fix this flow, we can fix that flow. But over hundreds of customers, like, why are these environments still breaking? Why are they still getting worse when we leave and finish a project and then we come back? Why do we see growing technical debt in IAM environments across our environment? Why are there continuous manual processes and broken flows? Why are there attack surfaces increasing? Especially, I mean, that's in every sort of cyber sort of ranking of risks. Identity risks are the number one thing. User request backlogs. We tend to see a lot of upset customers around backlogs growing and not shrinking, and general sentiment around that. The service desk that we see is that contracts are met, but nobody likes their service. I think in all of our customer travels, the statistics on customers that love their service is very, very low. I'm curious, Jim, Chris, did I say anything there that's going to strike like is extremely controversial?
No, this is what everybody knows. Why is it so hard to do more identity? Why is it hard to get it right? Why is it hard to, support the products that we have? Should we choose different products, or how these all form out as the questions and the conversations that we have day in and day out with our customers? And these are the root causes. And, I think there's one key thing that you'll talk about in a few slides. So I'm going to hold my tongue.
Okay.
I'll jump in and make a comment if that's all right, Aaron. So
Yeah,
some of
sure.
these things are unavoidable. You're gonna have manual processes. I've never seen the system that can't be tied to in an identity and access management world, but many times I've seen the system that doesn't make sense to tie to, whether that's monetary sense or political sense or whatever. It's just at some point you're gonna, yeah, we're not gonna bring that one under management. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that one ticket based. So everyone's gonna have some level of manual processes. Now the problem is, how do you fulfill that? How do you bring that under visibility of governance? How do you make sure you close loop remediate that it actually happens? And that's where the problems usually lie and where the dissatisfaction typically comes in, because that part typically isn't, very frequently is not done as well as it could be. Well, almost universally not done as well as it could be, but frequently done very poorly. And
in my accurate thing, it's probably a threshold, right? If if there's a provisioning process that's 5,000 users, it probably shouldn't be manual. But if it's 5 and it's highly sensitive, maybe it should be.
right, 100%. There's going to be times when it just doesn't make sense to bring that system under active. It's not worth spending the how much it's going to be to bring that under automatic management for 5 events a year. You're exactly right. And so everyone's going to get to that point. So there's going to be manual ticket-based stuff that happens in the identity world. How are you going to do that? And how are we going to bring that in as part of not this separate world, but bring it in as part of what you're talking about. Increased attack surface is big here too, because now as that manual process starts to go a little more off the rails, well, I got more and more unneeded access floating around, and my attack surface area is just growing all the time. And I really need to make sure that's down where it should be. So that's probably enough for me, Aaron. I'll shut up and let you move on.
Okay. Well, if this isn't controversial, let me try to be a little bit more controversial. So here's where we see the weakest link across customers. And let me couch this. This is a generalization, doesn't apply to all. So it's taking a bunch of data points and seeing like what bubbles up. And we think it's a service desk. We think that is where there's the root of pain, that if you fix that, everything else gets cleaned up. Why? We're going to just make up reasons, because truthfully, it could be one, it could be all of them, it could be none of them, something different. But maybe service desk contracts are misaligned. Maybe they're paid on headcount or ticket volume rather than pure performance levels. Maybe there's time zone issues that just make it really hard to communicate with an offshore team. And maybe there's just a very large team. Maybe they're lower skilled, maybe they're not, but it's so large. You have to roll out, every time you roll out a new system, you have to train 30 or 40 people, and that just has a failure rate. And maybe it's because for all of these reasons and more, that team is not communicating with your onshore consultants that are doing the engineering, or your in-staff consultants. Maybe they're just not communicating every day like you might do with your close circle of coworkers that you're either on Slack or you're on 3 calls a day, where if something's wrong, you hit them up right away. Again, like, I think it could be all of these things. It could be all these, but our thesis and where we see is like, this is the weakest link. If you can fix this, a lot of other things fall to place. So hopefully I didn't upset too many people. Jim, Chris, maybe you could add some color, because you guys are seeing this every day. Like,
yeah, I'm again that last one's important to me, and I'm going to hold. You've got a great slide on it. 2 more slides down.
okay,
just waiting and waiting. But
I've got one.
I would say that this is the key to a lot of the service issues, right? I mean, you said it before, nobody's really happy. Some people are unhappy, but nobody's really just super happy with their service desk around identity. And whether that's because everything is manual and you haven't automated enough, and because why are people doing runbook tasks for basic menial stuff when that should be automated maybe, or all of the service desk things are not nicely put in a run book, and so they have to do a lot of thinking and a lot of creative work, and so that's difficult maybe because, again, service desk is never our top earners, right? I mean, they promote out of the service desk and up. That's the base level. So yeah, I would say that a lot of times the service desk is where these things manifest. and it's super easy to address in the service desk.
Another point that I'm hearing frequently when we have these conversations is my externalized service desk is based on the number of headcount they're providing. So it's a conflict of interest. They're not incented to do it better, more automated, etc. Right? They're financially incented to keep people involved and to not change and just to they want to make sure they're meeting their SLAs. But if they cut from 50 people to 40, well, they just drop 10 headcount they can bill for. So they're really not incented to move down that path. And that's another thing that kind of perpetuates this problem.
And I know I've seen this when we've taken over environments. So it's the SOPs that like are long and make no sense, but maybe it makes sense in the context of no, if we do this, it might take longer. It might have 7 more steps than it should, but we hit our SLAs and anybody can follow it. Like it just, misalignment in some way. Let me kind of pose this to everyone. So we showed this slide of how we see the world, right? Program engineering, support, it all flows together. Everybody's talking in one happy circular motion, as all professional services slide decks should have. Let me pose that this is like the world we live in today, where like almost every client, engineering and program, are like tightly connected. The architects are to helping with the program. The executives are leaning on the architects, and the engineers are all talking. And then like support is over off somewhere where there's like a once a week reporting call. Does that feel right?
That's the key point. And even then, that once a week reporting call is how well are we doing our service? Almost never do you get feedback from the service desk on, you know what? We do so many of these particular tasks. This should be automated. This is our number one thing to automate. Get this out of the service desk because it's routine, it's rote, it's 80% of what we do. Just like password resets were the big thing a few years ago. And, everybody said, okay, well, your help desk is spending 45, 80%, whatever it is, and it costs you $20 per password reset in help desk resources. And now everybody's got self-service. So again, we're not getting the feedback on what we need to improve in engineering and program side because nobody's talking to the service desk.
Right.
That's fault is on both sides. But I mean, in engineering, we barely do user acceptance testing with users. We're not good about collecting feedback, and let's fix that.
Right. All right. Well, I wanted to bring some data along to this because this model is a huge industry. So just to add some color, U.S. service desk resources average across the country around $26 an hour, and offshore resources $12 an hour. Makes sense why this has been a trend for 26 plus years. That industry today is over $10 billion of U.S. companies offshoring their service desk. This is a huge, y'all are doing this. 50% of large companies do it. And just to kind of bring it home, because, Novacoast is a U.S. and has a large presence in the U.K., but for the most part, there's the companies that we service are U.S. or U.K. headquarters, and they're losing jobs. Those towns that people live in are losing jobs. So, yes, there's a huge industry around this. That industry, there's a lot of reasons why that industry is able to self-perpetuate itself, whether it's working or not at a larger scale. I have a thesis. Jim and Chris and I have been working together on this. We have some customers that we've been working with. We think this trend is about to reverse. I think the offshore trend is about to reverse as it pertains to service desk. Obviously, that's a $10 billion industry. Turning around is a big ship to turn, but I think the trend is going to be towards smaller, highly skilled teams, locally based, AI enabled. The sort of keyword there is AI enabled, which makes that happen. Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts were first was you put quotations around it. So who is the quote attributed to, sir?
Me, it's my quote. this is my statement. Now,
Aaron Howard Esquire. Got it.
yes,
Yeah.
not in a silo, It's based on work we've done and working with you
Yes.
guys. But yes, high conviction. How about that?
There you go.
All right, we'll put it in the history books so that like 50 years from now, when people are talking about what were the major pivot points in technology, well, Aaron Howard said that this would change.
Well,
Oh, this
also to put a fine point on it, as COO, you are putting our money where your mouth is.
Yes,
You've got a fair conviction
Our
that this
money.
is right.
yes, and some proof. So we're doing this. We're already doing it. We've already I said earlier, Novacoast was never been interested in this 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. We were dragged into this space by some managed services contracts, which required us to do this. And suddenly, a little background there, Novacoast owned a PAMS managed services group. So like high skilled, protect your crown jewels 24/7 service desk for PAM. And we had to expand that to the entire identity service. We did that as we do everything with our employees, with onshore resources. We've discovered we're able to do it, and these ratios change based on people's data, but like a 4-to-1 ratio. So smaller, highly skilled team. And by the way, those team members collaborate extremely closely with our engineering. So not by any surprise, they're in the same company. They're often friends. And so this is the biggest service desk ticket that's bothering me. I'll call one of my IAM engineering folks and they'll help me out. So that tight collaboration has made our lives a lot easier. And we're able to kind of do that, that math that I showed you, that 26-12 kind of math by superpowering our analysts with AI. What that means is not they just sit there and say, AI, guess, figure out how to do this ticket. It's all good analysts script things. They PowerShell, you give them a framework to script things. We've just AI juiced those tools in a framework that's governed, has governance that allows them to be way more efficient. So if we can do this and it works and it's a better experience, I think the industry is going to do it as a whole, which comes back to my thesis. And I want to share the success we've been having with you all.
Real quick on that last slide
please.
there, Aaron.
Yes.
Point number 3 is we find that benefit is equivalent to like re-insourcing. If you outsource something, you have this communications problem. But because our team is enabled to talk to our other team with your permission and all that fun stuff, and everybody's local, it's as almost as good as re-insourcing all of these services back into your company, because now they're much more available, they're much more in the loop and communicative, and everybody's one big happy team again.
Yes. And the experience of end users talking to local resources, and the experience of the service desk people being able to have a conversation with engineering, and that, yes, all those cycles are improved. Some of the metrics, that high level metrics that we've seen include improved mean time to resolution. That's an obvious one that can be measured in SLAs. Elevated customer experiences. We track a library of kudos. I in my role get the weekly kudos emails. We have a lot of healthcare clients, so a lot of doctors that send us emails every week that get forwarded on what a great experience they had with so-and-so. That partnership between customer engineering teams, when it's not us doing the work, we try to include engineering in every contract. We think it's smart for us to make our lives easier for ourselves. And then the other thing that we run into is all of y'all are growing and acquiring companies, but that ability to be agile, add new acquisitions in, add new applications in, have it not impact response times because we're flexible, we're scalable with our tooling. That's been a huge success for us.
To underscore that last point, the overall maturity of your IAM infrastructure and service desk being a key component of that, the better you are positioned and the more the less complicated it's going to be to go through that M&A process, right? If you've got a sound identity infrastructure, importing and setting up for collaboration with a being acquired organization. I've had customers that have come and told me that our competitive advantage in M&A, because we have a legitimate competitive advantage in that space now because we can onboard, we can do more of these on a shorter time frame, and so yeah, it's a genuine benefit in that world.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our controversial comments, a little bit about us and our pitch. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to tell us we have no idea what we're talking about. We love all feedback. We are here for it. We are here for you guys. And if you're interested in talking more to us, we'd obviously love to continue the conversation.
All right, we do have one question in the Q&A. Again, feel free to send any questions in the Q&A or chat and I'll read them off. Scott said, how do you think the difference between worker identity and customer/vendor identity complicates this?
Ooh, good question. Good question. Jim, Chris, what do you think?
Man, I'll take a pass at it unless you want to, Jim.
Go for it.
So when you're talking about enterprise identity versus CIAM, whether that's consumer, citizen, whatever that C stands for in that paradigm. So the traditional difference has been enterprise identity can be a whole lot more complicated in the setup, but the scale is usually not as big, unless you're just a giant global enterprise with millions plus employees. Usually it's 10,000 employees. It can be really complicated, but the scale isn't as bad. The citizen consumer side is usually the flip of that, right? It's simpler use cases, but done at what can be really vast scale. I was just on the phone with someone yesterday talking about 50 million potential identities they're managing in a B2C model. I've had customers that are high 8, low 9 figure identities managed. So, but in those scenarios, they're usually not as complicated use cases. Typically, they're not. There's not a. I'm not going to reorg my customers and have to put everyone in different groups and change who's reporting and structure and hierarchical. No, it's usually pretty flat from that point of view. So typically, when you're talking about service desk, vast majority of what we're talking about are those more complicated enterprise users that have some legacy system they have to worry about hitting or something along those lines. The scale involved for B2C usually means those are the ones that have to be simpler and have to be more automatable, and they're typically already automated. If you've got a large pool of citizens or consumers that you're having to help on a regular basis, that's going to be pricey. So you're typically not going to see that one as much, at least in my experience. Jim?
Yeah, I see it differently. Most of my customers have two different service contracts and or service groups for the service desks serving these two populations. So you've got some folks who are managing the workforce, and yes, absolutely more complicated. You probably want more direct interpersonal communication, more phone access, more things like that. And then customers tend to be more online, SIAM, and there's only 4 things that we support. So it's really easy to run book and automate all that kind of stuff. So it's really just a question of how do you blend or negotiate those individual contracts such that if I want to condense those two, 100% I can. If I'm dealing with a lot of offshore people or outsourced people who don't understand my business, they don't know whether to give a lot of personal attention to my workers, or they don't have to spend as much time because they've got to crank through 10,000 tickets for the SIAM. So it's really just what's your outcome you're looking for. The users are going to be a little bit different, but even within those same populations, we've got different users, right? I've got a lot of folks on the workforce where they're doing basic stuff. They're frontline workers. They have low impact. Maybe it's a factory or whatnot. And yeah, if somebody from the C-suite calls in, it's an automatically P1 incident, and I escalate like crazy and put people on it. So you're dealing with those shades of gray anyway. So it's just more of that.
Yeah. Okay. It makes me think, when we see somebody's application list, right? If it's internal, it's 50 applications long.
Yeah, 200. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Beth, any other questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say last call for any other questions. I don't see any in the Q&A or the chat. All right, if you do have questions,
Thank
feel free
you.
to email any of us. We will be sending out the slides and the recording later today, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you all. It is 10:30, so I will respect your time and call it a
Appreciate it.
day. Thank you, Aaron, Jim, Chris. Appreciate it.
Take
No
care,
problem.
everybody.
Talk to you soon.